south London, you know, it went there, congregated there, and like it was horrible. It was just the malevolence was like palpable. And some bloke got up on stage while the support band were playing and like thumped him in the face and all this sort of stuff. It was like, and we sort of realised that, you know, this is going to be our audience. You know, so they obviously need, you know, we need to put something in front of them that's going to sort of move them away from this, you know, neo-Nazi kind of.
It must be difficult attracting a faction.
It's very pretentious too, because I don't want to come out, you know, sort of stand up and say, well, actually, you know, yes, I changed multiculturalism, and you know, no, I didn't.
It's challenging,
but
though, I think.
You know, I would like to think that I went some way to help, but you know, what is it? The preachers say you've got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything. You know, I mean, because that's what happened when the two-tone movement sort of disappeared. It was frilly shirts and let's be hedonistic and, you know, pretend we're in Berlin in the 20s, you know.
I denied all that, you see, because I was 12 when you split up. And
I'm sorry if you're fans of Spandau Ballet or Duran Duran. You're in for a hard time this afternoon.
And I remember you played Hemel Hempstead Pavilion along one of those. It might have been a Clash support tour,
right?
But you played Hemel Hempstead. You won't have remembered it because Hemel Hempstead's a fairly immemorable place. But I remember people, you know, at school the next day, their brothers and stuff talking about this legend thing. I couldn't go. So I just ignored Spandau Ballet and stuff like that, and just motored on buying. You know what your music does. It makes you look further into other kind of music. And I remember the 20 Trojan classics coming out with a checkerboard cover like this, with the originals of some of the songs like the Skinhead Symphony that you needed, and even the UB40 songs at the time, Tony Tribe and things. And so your music actually made a lot of people take another direction and start looking at other music they may never have looked at in the first place, which is I think is a really positive thing.
Okay.
Design, we're all, you know, doing art, graphic design, photography and stuff. I think the two-tone label, it's a great example of it, with the logo, the black and white with the checkerboard. It's one of the strongest, I think, as a sort of a label and how it's presented, visual identity of the bands. I mean, we were scribbling Selector on our pencil cases and all that because they were so strong, you know. And I just wondered how that came about.
Well, it's a good idea. You know, I mean, that's the secret of good graphics or of good design is a good idea. And I think lots of things. It goes back to the 60s, that op art thing, and the Bridget Riley, the black and white squares, and all those sort of fashion shots in the 60s, and that was taken up by the mods, and there again we were the specials. We were black guys and white guys. You know, it ain't rocket science, but you know. And we nicked this picture of there's this famous photo of the Bob Marley and the Wailers. There's you know, and that's Peter Tosh in the middle. I remember Jerry always saying that because the Wailers were like a close harmony group, based themselves on sort of the American sort of doo-wop groups in like the early 60s. I remember Jerry saying that the Two-Tone Man was an impression of the impressions, which I thought was quite clever, you know. So that's basically what that is, you know, and it's, you know, it's easy. It's two colours, cheap, you know, but really effective.
Yeah, and it's lasted. I mean, it's very strong, and I think a lot of the bands who came after, especially the sort of third, fourth generation ska bands, the Untouchables, and even things like the Trojans, they kind of, you know, adopted that kind of style in the way they.
Well, two-tone is a noun now, you know. I'm a two-tone band. You know, and it's worldwide as well. And
that character's called Walt Jabsco, isn't he?
After a bowling shirt that Jerry, you know, it's like it was just like, well, what's the guy called? Which was like a dumb question, really. So okay, we're going to call him the name of somebody on the shirt. You know, ask me a proper question. You know.
No, it's great. It's great stuff. I think it's, when you say people were, it's a sort of body snatchers as well. I've forgotten all about those, but you know, people drawing it.
But it was a movement. It's like punk was a movement, but it wasn't. I think there was a tour where the Sex Pistols toured with the Johnny Thunder, the Heartbreakers, and all that kind of stuff. But you would never get a package tour. You would never get the Damned and the Sex Pistols and the Clash playing together. You know, it was very much separate. Whereas Two-Tone, we wanted this to be a movement. We loved Tamla Motown. You know, and you'd hear a Tamla Motown tune, and you know, oh yeah, okay, I know what record label that's on, and you knew it was going to be good. And we wanted to do like a UK equivalent of Tamla Motown, which, you know, so it had a visual synod, something, you know, it was visually the same, but and it had a similar sound.
I think where you come from as well, because in the early part of the book you talk about your influence, because you were in bands before the Specials.
Well, this was the other thing. The Sex Pistols were like 18, 19, you know. The Clash weren't, but I won't tell anybody if you weren't. But whereas the rest of us, we were kind of like a generation older. Terry, our singer, was like sort of 19. He grew up with the Sex Pistols and the Clash, but whereas the rest of us had been to art college and he was kind of mid-20s, so we could play, though, you know. Whereas like the Buzzcocks and the Undertones, you know, struggled perhaps early on. You know, we'd done all that. We'd played at working men's clubs and discos and stuff in the 70s.
Breaker was the band, one of the bands, isn't it? Yeah. We haven't got a
show
picture
band
of
from it.
Breaker.
Thank God for that.
But you know, you talk about Booker T and the MGs. I mean, all the way back before the Specials, that influence of Black American music, and then won't get onto your current art just yet, but that's obvious. Stack stuff, and it's just gone all the way through.
Well, it was dance music, so we were, you know, in Coventry, which was a multicultural city before multiculturalism was invented, really, you know, destroyed in the war, and then lots of people came from all over the place to rebuild it in the 60s. My friend Neil Davis, who's a guitar player and selector, you know, in his street when he was growing up, they were Greek, Italian, Polish, you know, all sorts of, you know, Caribbean people, and everybody all went to school together, you know, because Coventry was small enough not to have ghettos. Whereas, if you like, you know what I mean? Whereas in Birmingham, there's Handsworth, in Bristol, there's St Paul. In Coventry, it wasn't that big. So everyone basically had to get on because they all lived in the same street. And I think musically, it was good as well, because you got the gig because you were a good guitarist, not because you were black or because you were white. So it might be a black band, but you'd have... So there was that thing that you would have that interracial mix of musicians, which you know, and I don't think that would have happened. You know, having said that, the Beat came out of Birmingham and they were black and white, so that kind of shoots that in the foot. But never mind. But that's, you know. No, so I think. But I think it's a relevant.
He's good, isn't he?
He's all right. He's okay.
And also, I imagine, you know, Coventry must have suffered as much as anyone else in the period before Thatcher and after Thatcher, with, you know, job losses and industry closing down, and that kind of anger probably.
Well, I always said that Coventry was like the Detroit of England. I mean, but just like Detroit, it suffered tremendously when you know, when all the, you know, the recessions and stuff in the 70s.
I think it was I don't know if people have seen the Julian Temple Clash documentaries, but he always puts a lot of social photography and clips in there of bin strikes and 3-day week, and sort of creates a context of what was going on there. It's hard to even imagine that kind of stuff, you know. Now. I'm going to just quickly move on. I'm going to link this to your current work, but I was always quite impressed that you were touring with the Specials, and this is what you were in the world's eye for quite a lot of that. I mean, you were one of the best bands on the planet, touring band, but when you had your downtime, and you're talking about damp suits and no sleep and all this kind of stuff, being in sort of humid environments in LA, you'd always
the glamour.
The glamour. I mean, you think it's going to be glamorous, and some of it you think, you know, you've met Debbie Harry and had a tuna fish sandwich, but at the same time, you're sort of, you know, knackered, I imagine, all the time. But you're finding your downtime and going to, you know, the Louvre and the Pompidou Centre and, you know, all these kind of things. So art starts, you know, where you started at art college.
Yeah, I met Jerry at art college.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to go to art college. I liked paint. I like art. You know, I wanted to.
But it seems to have carried on throughout. You know, throughout the Specials. I don't know if the other members of the band were, you know, going to galleries.
Not to my knowledge. No.
So it's just.
And I wouldn't sort of like make a big deal out of it. You know. Oh, by the way, I went to. I went to see a Liechtenstein exhibition today. What the fuck's that? You know. No.
So. Obviously from there, I'm just going to link in, over the last 6 or 7 years, and I think since maybe the Specials reformed, I think you said that it gave you a little bit of downtime. You weren't teaching anymore. You started to create your own work and make your own art, which we're going to have a look at as we go through now.
Okay.
I'm just going to ask, what inspired you to start doing that? I mean, obviously you're an art teacher, you have an art background, but is there any impetus that got you moving in that direction?
Yes, I would use the fact that I was visiting all these cities around the world to go and see great art in the great art gallery. So it was great, you know, travel broadens the mind. You know, so going to, you know, I've been able to see, you know, all these you know, I saw the Guernica, you know, Picasso's Guernica in Madrid. Great,
saw that as well.
yeah, amazing. It's huge, isn't it? I didn't realise it. All those little sort of there's little straight marks on it were made by his missus.
I didn't know that.
Now you can imagine Picasso going, here, just get a bit of brush and just do a few bits on there. I thought that was fantastic. This amazing painting.